Hello and welcome to Dev Game Club, a weekly podcast in which two veteran game developers play games from the past and discuss their impact and relevance today. I'm Tim Longo, and I'm joined, as always, by a man whose heart is lost somewhere between the separation of the sky and the land.
Brett Duville. Yeah, I don't know what that means at all.
I was telling Brett, hopefully the Kingdom Hearts fans out there will know what this reference is. And I was telling Brett he probably does not. So apparently, Sora means Sagai in Japanese, and Riku means land, and Kairi means separation.
What?
Yeah,
that is a deep cut, indeed.
Well, I don't know what for some reason I wanted to know if Riku's name meant anything because I felt like, he has a lot more deeper, I don't know, the way the game ends, there's a lot going on with him and he's kind of left in the state that he's left in and stuff. And then that obviously led to Sora and Kairi's name too. So I just thought that was interesting. Some specific kind of, I don't know, is it on the nose? Does it mean anything? It's a little, I don't know, maybe it means nothing, but it seems pretty specific to say it's sky and land and then separation for Kairi. So there you have it. We are finally finishing Kingdom Hearts 1 on PlayStation 2. This is our final episode. Thank goodness for me. This was my idea to begin with, and I don't regret it. I will say I don't. I ultimately, though, very frustrated and not completely happy with the game. All in all, I'd say I was happy that I played it. And based on the even though I had the frustrations, I definitely look back with some fond memories. But you, sir, you went much deeper.
I went a little bit deeper.
A little bit. Why don't you share with the audience what you've done to yourself?
So over the last weekend, that not the last couple of days, but 10 days ago, I was streaming the end of the game, and I got to a point on Sunday where I basically had everything but the Ultima weapon. I knew that if you synthesize all the items in the synthesis shop, you could get the Ultima weapon, and that would just make the end of the game that much easier. And why not? I figured I'll just dive in and do that. So I did 4 hours of grinding to get the ingredients that you need basically to make that thing. And then I got sick. I had been out of town, and I think I must have picked up a bug, and it hit me basically that Monday, and I had several days off. And so I basically spent several days just playing. Whenever I was awake, I was playing Kingdom Hearts on the PlayStation 4. I did finish the stream. It took me about 45 minutes to go through the end of the game because I had the best weapon. I just kind of zipped through that, and I was clearly ill, and I said, okay, I'm going to lie down. And when I did, I basically lied down and was playing more Kingdom Hearts on the PS4 in my living room. And I have now since then completed the game twice more on the PlayStation 4, and I'm halfway through a third playthrough on the PlayStation 4, each on a different level of difficulty. So I got almost all of the trophies on my first PS4 playthrough, which included going and fighting all the secret bosses, all this endgame stuff. Basically, before you go through the final rest and into the end of the world, you can just go and do tons and tons of stuff. And a lot of JRPGs have this. And usually what happens to me is I start playing that, and at a certain point, I'm just like, okay, I'm done. And I just race to wherever the end of the game is and finish it. And I just don't do all the extra stuff. And this time I did. So I have been so deep in Kingdom Hearts over the last 10 days. It's kind of extraordinary.
Yeah. Wow. On multiple platforms, and you're going to platinum, you think? Is that?
Oh yeah, I'm I'm probably 10 hours away from finishing the difficult playthrough, the proud mode. And then I have a couple gummy ship trophies to pick up after that. But I have already done, there's one where you have to finish the game. First of all, there's finishing the game in under 15 hours. And then second of all, there's finishing the game without having ever changed your starting equipment.
Whoa.
And I did that on easy because, of course, I did it on easy.
Right.
No way I was going to. So you get through to the end of the game, and that's when I had to lean on like summons and stuff. I had to lean on Tinkerbell in particular at the end of the game.
Right. Well, and then the PlayStation version or 1.5 or whatever it is then has an easy mode, because the PlayStation 2 only has normal and hard or something. Yeah,
right. And there's an easy mode.
Okay, yeah.
And there's also I think we talked about this on a prior occasion, that on the proud mode you can choose 0 XP from the beginning of the game, so that you never level. But I'm not doing that. That's there was no trophy for that, so I am not trying that.
Right. That's the obsession mode. That's somebody who's really gonna master it. Yeah,
that's somebody who sees the Matrix.
The Kingdom Hearts Matrix.
That's right.
Oh, that's a scarier Matrix to me than the real Matrix, the Kingdom Hearts Matrix, because there's a little bit of an element of that in sort of the weird backstory of this game, the darkness. Man.
Well, and we've got the tie-in with Alice in Wonderland too. The White Rabbit. We're down the rabbit hole.
Okay. Oh wow. Yeah, you're right. Of course. The good catch. Good catch. Deep cut there. Yeah, I mean, we'll get there, but just the end of the game and just the locations and the end of the world and it's, oh man, something else. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, it doesn't disappoint when it comes to JRPG. I think I mentioned this probably in every episode for this series, but I definitely had some Final Fantasy IX flashbacks here and there. I feel, just like the way the bosses escalate at the end and how crazy and ridiculous they get as well. But we'll get there.
Yeah, especially the final like Ansem form thing.
That ship, whatever oh my goodness.
That is really something else. I mean, and it's funny because the first time I played this, I really bounced off of that pretty hard. First of all, it was very difficult. The first time I played it, and I probably wasn't leveled enough. I was curious. Do you know where you kind of ended?
When you say the first time?
No, I mean,
that's right.
The very first time, some years ago. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. This is actually technically my second, third, fourth, and almost fifth time finishing this game.
Right. Oh, that's right. Of course, we didn't even mention that. This is your second time on PS2 as well. So
yeah, yes, it is. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, you have to finish the whole series. You're like you've become the Kingdom Hearts guy. So you gotta, and maybe you can keep the podcast up to date on just some little mini stories along the way.
Yeah. I think I will occasionally just pull the PS4 out and bring it downstairs and stream one of them. I probably won't do all of them that way because I like to play a variety of things, and this is going to take me a while. But and especially once the sort of Kingdom Hearts 3 blushes off and people have kind of moved on.
Right.
That might be the time to start playing those main title entries. Maybe I'll play Kingdom Hearts 2 on stream, but I'll maybe skip some of the other games that way.
Right. Yeah, I did forget to mention that, we did miss an episode last week due to some shenanigans. For those who weren't on Twitter, power outages, to be honest, and multiple power outages, all kind of in and around my playthrough for the last. So it was ultimately on me. Brett had finished, but I did not finish before the power outages, so we had to skip a week. I think we figured out that we've only missed 3 weeks, 3 episodes, right? For the whole.
I think that's true. There 150. I mean, there have been somewhere I've done a rerun on a week, but
right.
But I think we've. But it might even be only 3, including those.
You're right. Yeah. Anyway,
I think
so I apologize.
Just rerun something.
Didn't maybe could have thought ahead that maybe that would have happened and finished earlier than normal, but I guess I was just too hopeful. But yeah, so here we are, finally finishing off a week, extra week later. Yeah, you were about to ask me about the ending.
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking about that the first time, some years ago when I played this game, just coming up on that, well, let's just say extremely phallic, uh,
Oh my
Ansem,
goodness, yeah.
whatever heartless monster thing is. I'm sure it has a name. I don't know it, and I don't really care to know it. But
Don't even go. I don't want to
it's
do a search for whatever that is.
oh, what I was going to ask you is actually what level you were.
You know,
Um,
I'm kicking myself. I had made a mental note to check, and then I just forgot. I
just
totally.
forgot. Yeah.
I'll have to get back. Yeah, I feel like. Well, the last time I had checked, I was at 51 or 2,
Uh-huh.
and that was before going into. So I can probably guesstimate here. That was before going into the Hollow Bastion the last time, and I
Mm-hmm.
probably got 3 or 4 levels during the ending sequences.
Yeah.
Because you
Yeah.
tend to,
That
I didn't
that
realize
sounds
there'd be
about right.
so many extra battles other than the bosses. So um, they definitely stretch it out there. So yeah, maybe around, 55 to 60, somewhere around there.
Yeah, I was at level 41, going into the final weekend. Um, and so the last stop, the Hollow Bastion forward. And then I want to say I finished around level 68
Hmm.
on the PS2. I did,
Yeah.
of course, max level on the PS4.
And that
So
is 80. What is the max level?
no, 100.
Oh, is it? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's got to make such a big difference in general. The funny thing is one of the weird level based things that I didn't anticipate, kind of wishing that I was higher for, is actually inventory slots or item
Mm,
slots. Because that last string of bosses, you don't have a time to replenish very
right.
often.
Right.
So if I end up needing to use a bunch of them, especially for the second Ansem fight, which, if that makes any sense, after the beach, and then he's in that weird hollowed out tree area,
Oh
whatever the
yeah,
heck,
sure.
on the island. That was actually a pretty hard fight for me, similar to the Riku Ansem fight in the chapel area in the previous location in the Hollow Bastion. Um, Yeah, so I don't know. I figured there probably was a boss battle or something after that one, but I was like, it's got to be because it was so hard. I figured it was probably one of the last ones, so I used most of my items. So I ended up in the very last boss with very few items left. Though you do pick some up from chests and stuff. So, but anyway, that was just an unexpected, because so much of the combat is skill based, so you can kind of, through some skill and brute force, manage if you're a little lower level, as opposed to other sort of turn-based stuff. But if you make some false moves and you need to replenish and you've run out of mana, and you've run out of items, then you're pretty much, there's nothing you can do.
Well, it's my understanding that you could make it through on 0 XP.
Right. That's okay. Fair enough.
So I guess
That
it's
is
possible.
possible. Yes.
That'll never happen with me, but I guess it's possible.
I don't know. With your journey, you might that need may need to
It
be.
could end up being a trophy on some later game. I don't know that
Oh,
I'm going to be able to do this level of.
you're
It's
not gonna.
only because of the perfect storm of being sick, that, and I'm still feeling it a little bit tonight. I don't know what's going on.
You're not gonna platinum all of them.
No, I don't think that'll
That
happen.
sounds insanity. Yeah.
But the ones that grab me, I'll let them grab me. I mean,
Yeah. Okay.
that's basically what typically happens. Is that it just like at some point something just clicks, and now it's just all I want to do.
Right.
Um, and I mean, the way I play games is I'm not really in it to go and chew through games as fast as I can to see everything. I more just it's like how I read. I go in kind of reading jags where I'm just going to read everything by this author or what have you, and I just kind of follow my heart as far as that goes. It's just
Was that
oh yeah,
intentional?
and it was not actually, but I just kind of let my interests take me where they take me,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm not following some list or trying to keep up. with what's coming out today or whatever. I very rarely play things right when they come up. I
Yeah.
often buy them right when they come out because I'm going to want to play this someday. Still haven't cracked that Bloodborne I bought the month it came out.
No, man.
But no, I mean, it's just it's just the thing with me. But that's why I have so many games across so many systems in my house, some not even opened. But yeah, I just let them take me, and if they don't, that's fine. Sometimes I finish games, sometimes I don't finish games. But
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
the most part, if it grabs me, I just let it grab me all the way. And this time out, in part because of the flu, I guess, Kingdom Hearts grabbed me all the way. So,
Well, that's good. Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty much the same way. I just think fewer games maybe grab me, or I let them. But there definitely are some that I went, a few of the ones that I went pretty deep into. But
yeah, you still have a man bull in WoW. So
yeah, well, that one never let go. And as far as World of Warcraft is what he's referring to, but no, Witcher 3, most recently Prey. I played many 40 hours of Prey, and
and that's a lot for you.
Breath of the Wild. I'm over probably near 150 hours, but I'm still not done. But so yeah, I get it, and I can see how Kingdom Hearts would be a game that can grab you, and I was telling Brett and I were talking about this in the pre-show a little bit, and I kind of have this as usual, some inner turmoil over the JRPG question for myself, because this one, last series with Pokemon, I definitely that one did grab me, and really for some reason connected to me differently. Not exactly the same kind of JRPG, but some similarities. But Pokemon, I feel like, is kind of a thing of its own, and this one fits a little bit more. Other than the real time combat, it fits a little bit more into the mold. And I don't know what it is that I just bounce off of the JRPGs. It's some of it is the is the aesthetics and the sort of melodrama of it all, and then kind of the hypocritical side of me is sort of thinking, well, why am I so obsessed with Metal Gear then? Because there's pretty much the correlation between the exaggeration of both of them are very similar, and I don't know. I think it probably comes down to sort of the backdrop of the military setting and the espionage and the and Snake and that kind of stuff, and for whatever reason, but something like Kingdom Hearts isn't doing it for me. But I definitely appreciate the game, and the Disney angle. One of the main reasons we're playing this, and we'll talk about in takeaways, the Disney angle definitely added a whole layer of the appreciation for me. There's definitely multiple magical moments happened, especially at the end with Mickey, that were just pretty spot on. I mentioned the Big Ben sequence in the last episode, and really pulls on your nostalgia and kind of heartstrings.
Well, and
very
when
intentionally.
Maleficent transforms.
Oh yeah, that was a good moment too. Yeah, totally.
That's another moment that I can remember how terrifying that was when I saw that when I was like 5 or whatever,
Yeah.
And it's still, I mean, it's still pretty terrifying. It's pretty great. That scene.
It
Very
is,
well
and
recreated.
it's and they nailed it too. I forgot to mention this note in pre-show. One small topic I wanted to hit that I think this is a good segue from is the nailing so many different character archetypes in one game like this. And what I mean by that, to get a little bit technical, the models and the rigs and the animation style all kind of bringing, because you have so many companion characters, they're all very different characters, and this is, as an example, Beast at the end is a very different character from the genie or whatever. The genie is who comes with you, right? Or is it?
No, it's Aladdin.
Aladdin. Okay, genie is a summons, right?
Genie is a summon. Yep.
But or Tarzan, right? And
right.
The animators,
or Jack, the Pumpkin King,
or Jack, yeah, exactly. and then to have these bosses as well, which I didn't, unfortunately I didn't experience Ursula, so I didn't go back to do that. But each boss, each villain they have, right, just beautifully animated. And each of those characters has to have their own rig, they have to study the animation style of each of those characters separately. It's a big feat, and you could really mess that up. And I would say they did not. They really, and I think the dragon coming out, and then the boss from Fantasia, whose name is escaping me, and I don't think Chernobog. That also being a wonderful surprise. Also coming back to sort of a classic Disney moment where, in a way, you probably didn't see it coming, unless someone had spoiled it for you, and you were a big Disney fan, to have that thing, that kind of demon thing, come out and really animate and look very fluid and very much like it does in the films, or in the film. That's not easy. So I wanted to just shout out on just that feat in and of itself, bringing I mean, there are a lot of characters. It's kind of making sense to me a little bit why 2 and 3 took so long to come out.
Right, sure.
Because
well, yeah, I mean, the greater their fidelity, the harder it's going to be to pull that off. I mean, Kingdom Hearts 3 is on modern systems. I mean, and apparently it does look pretty amazing. People are mixed on it on the stream, but in general, I've heard it very positively referred to, and that's a trick. That is a hard thing to do. So
yeah, you're basically making multiple games, right, all in one game in a way. Even though the mechanics aren't different, but as far as like the content and the creation of those characters, I mean, there's games that one world that you travel to in a Kingdom Hearts game can occupy a full game of that content, right?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, MediEvil is basically all set in Halloween Town.
Right. Yeah, that's a good example. Yeah. So anyway, I wanted to call that out. I forgot to mention that one, but pretty impressive. Yeah. So, what were some of our other topics?
A couple other things to touch on. Do you want to do the weird? Since we're talking about fighting things, maybe talk about the special attacks that you kind of discovered pretty late in the game. And I didn't use it all on the PS2 version.
Yeah,
but easier to get to on the PS4 version. I'll get to that in a second. But you want to describe your discovery?
Yeah. Well, there's certain abilities that are that you can spec that essentially are triggered kind of contextually based on usually distance or range to an enemy. And I'd read the descriptions. I would basically equip those abilities, and I'd read the descriptions, and it says, oh, it's like there's a combo, and after an enemy does a thing, you can then execute this action, and then it will cause this special combo attack to occur. And I was like, oh, that sounds cool. I wonder how that happens. So pretty much for the whole game, I was like, I equip these things. I assume they're happening. I don't know when they happen. I don't notice them happening. And then I hit the Riku Ansem battle, the one where they're sort of merged. I don't remember if there's 2 meetings of him. There might be, but I got stuck on that boss fight. Probably somewhere between 20 and 30 times I played that boss fight, and it was gut wrenching, especially because
I feel bad because I did it first try.
yeah. You gloated over text, I remember.
Yeah, I know. I just wanted to have the audience get my gloat in.
Yeah, you gotta get that jab in there one more time. And I did, because I got stuck, I did read a little bit up on that one to see if there's any strategy I was missing. And apparently it's considered one of the hardest, if not the hardest battle, because it's very skill-based. But anyways, and a lot of timing and stuff. So that's where I discovered how to use these abilities, because I just was trying all sorts of things, because I just couldn't. I just wasn't good enough to do it, apparently. But then the weird thing about these abilities is it's menu-driven. So yes, you have to be at a certain range usually for them to trigger. That may not always be the case. There's maybe it's a Ragnarok, I think you said is flying based. So
yeah, against things are off the ground. Yeah.
But then
you have to be on the ground, so you can't use it at the end of the game.
Oh, okay, yeah. So in the middle of these battles, the bottom the bottom selection of your action menu lights up basically contextually based on your range for whichever of these abilities is appropriate at the time. And for whatever reason, I just never saw the text changing, which maybe would have given me a clue. But literally in the middle of these battles, you have to scroll to that. You can go up obviously to use a circular menu, so you don't have to go all the way down. But still, using a menu in the middle of of a boss battle multiple times is just not that great. And
no, it's poor, in fact, and that's why on the PS4 they put it on the triangle button.
Right,
they don't even, and they actually show it above, and it's in a different color as well, which I'm not sure whether it is in the. I don't think I equipped many of those even on the PS2 playthrough. Maybe none.
What do you mean it's above?
So it's above the top entry. So the top entry is attack. When these things are available, there's a new entry, but it's not selectable. It's just green background, black text, right. Black triangle. I forget exactly how the triangle looks.
So it's really obvious.
It's very clear because the color changes in the corner of your eye. So you can do something special, and it's just the triangle button.
Right. Yeah, that would have helped.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things wrong there. I mean, certainly the scrolling is terrible, but there's also the fact that you're very focused on the center of the screen where the enemy is because you're locked on.
Yeah,
right.
And that fight is like zero failure. Like you can make no errors.
You have to be pretty good at dodging there.
Yeah,
I mean, if you're pretty good at dodging, you can do it in your first try.
Yeah. Okay. I heard that coming. Well, it's to your point. The focus is really critical, for sure. And then the other weird thing that is why maybe, I guess in my in my heart, I thought to myself, there's no way that these abilities are something that would be so contextual that they would change contextually, but use the same selection or something, And so not only is it weirdly in that menu, but also they change contextually based on the range. And so if you wanted to use, because I think at that fight I had three equipped, so that actual menu item could be three different things based on what was happening. So not only am I
strike raid and ours whatever that
ours
is,
Arcanum or something.
Ours Arcanum.
Yeah. And then there's the one that Cloud gives you. I forget the name of it, but it's this. You get it from Cloud, from fighting him in the Colosseum. But anyway, so you're kind of watching it multiple times. Ultimately, long story short, or long story long, I abandoned that system for that battle and kind of went back to basics, and that's how I ended up beating it. I put everything I could into my equipment into defense, and I actually didn't use magic almost at all, other than arrow. And then I just buckled down and mastered it, mastered the timing and just used guard, used dodge, roll, and, just kind of surgically. So I ended up beating him with kind of no gimmicks. So it ultimately, it's one of those, Demon Souls kind of moments where you're like, man, that boss, I hate this thing. I hate this game. It's terrible. This is a terrible game. And then you finish it and you're like, I'm a badass. I did it, and
exactly.
you have that moment of triumph, and that's where they get you. That's where the video games, they get you. So,
yeah, I mean, that menu based thing is a real holdover from the turn-based JRPG stuff, right? I mean,
that's
totally.
I assumed.
I think they just did not realize to what degree that was bad.
Right.
It just doesn't make any sense in that. I mean, it would have been much better to literally put it on the screen, in the center of the screen, on the line, to be like, oh, you can do this now, and to give it its own button. They certainly had buttons available. And of course, at least one of those things they did later. I think it might have been distracting over time to put it in the center of the screen, but finding some way to highlight it is definitely good improvement. So,
well, I mean, you can clearly, this is a perfect example of of this game being a transitional game for them
Yeah.
from an overall design perspective, right? You could see them starting to dabble in other things, right? Because their bread and butter were the the JRPG turn-based stuff up to that point, and this one little mechanic we're talking about, you can see them sort of struggling and stumbling forward, and everybody did at this era, right? So it's forgivable. They're just experimenting, but it was interesting to kind of just dissect that one particular thing. And to your point, you can directly see the lineage of the menu-based combat, and then they kind of merged it into this action-oriented combat, and of course that doesn't work. So anyway, there's a little call out that I wanted to bring up. But yeah, do you want to talk about? Is there any way to talk about story stuff as we are closing this thing down?
I mean, we can try. I mean,
or or is the story just really just a very loose structure to allow them to go to any world that they want to?
I mean, that's what it has to be, right? So at its core, I'm not sure how much sense it can really make.
Yeah, zero. That's
or that not even that it can make. It's more that it even needs to make, right? It because you're kind of awed by the spectacle of doing all this stuff, right? I mean, the worlds that really connect, as we've talked about previously, for me are the things that are really nostalgic for me, and of course the ones that I don't have much connection to just don't. So it just gives me that opportunity to go to those places, and I'm really kind of along for that ride, no matter what. The story itself doesn't have to mean anything. But I do think that the tone is right. The tone of the story is one that is hopeful. It's earnest. It's somewhat light, despite this sort of very heavy stuff that's going on. But yeah, I mean, I think that they kind of, when you're stretching something out over this many hours too, and going all these different places, it's very hard for that to make tons of sense. We hadn't really got to the point where we started modeling more on TV than movies, and so I think that the story does suffer for that. It's very hard to draw a through line of what's actually going on here.
Yeah, I think the one, I think you make an interesting point about the tone being right. And I once you said, I was about to disagree with you, but once you said hope, then I do agree with you on that regard, because I think that fits the Disney property quite well. And I don't know, I can't speak to Final Fantasy. I felt like I did feel Final Fantasy IX multiple times when we were playing through this particular game, and I don't know if that's a JRPG thing or if that's just a Final Fantasy IX thing, because that's my only basis of comparison, really. So I agree with you on that tone. The one thing that I, to your point about like the story can't really make much, can't really be too deep and make much sense based on what they're trying to do with it. And I think the one thing that I didn't like about it, though, is that I feel like there's multiple times when they are trying to make it make sense. They're trying to have it, at least to me, it felt like they were trying to not connect, but they were trying to have sort of a deeper structure to how it all works. And there is a meaning to things, and there is a logic to it. And I feel like, to your point, they need to not worry about that. They just need to let it be what it is. And they just kind of took themselves too seriously sometimes, in that.
Yeah, there's definitely, like, I mean, they have these themes. They have these themes they want to hit, right? There's these themes of friendship and
those are fine.
and opening up your heart and all that stuff. And I think that probably was enough.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's a lot of self-seriousness about how much that means at different points, especially towards the end. So,
well, I think Anthem is the culmination of that problem, right?
Yeah.
He's this sort of mysterious character that you follow throughout. You're finding his journal pieces, which is kind of I will say, I'll give them that. That's kind of interesting that you're. I didn't read all of them, but I feel like you're kind of following.
You probably didn't You didn't
through.
probably find all 13.
No,
So
no, I found probably 5 or something, but
yeah,
it's the concept of finding the pages of this boss you end up fighting who has gone down the dark path. It's a little heart of darkness kind of feeling.
yeah,
And so that was kind of cool. But he clearly had some sort of plan. He was trying to do something, and he kept talking about it all the time, right? And there was some arc to Ansem, but ultimately, I feel like it kind of fell flat.
yeah. I mean, I think it's really that they don't hit Ansem strongly enough. He's
Mhm.
basically mentioned to you way back when you are first talking with Squall and Yuffie in the cave.
Right. Oh, that's right. Yep.
Yeah, and they say, "Oh, well, he was doing research into the Heartless or whatever."
Really, really early.
Really early, when you first go meet. Do you meet Merlin then? I can't remember if that's when you. But yeah, it is. It's on the little quest to go bring the book to Merlin, and they mention him there, and that's really it. And you do pick up these pieces, but they could have made a bigger deal of that. They could have said, "Oh, you found another page or another report or what have you,"
Mm.
um, and
Yeah.
really
Oh, yeah.
redirected you into that. I mean, it wouldn't have taken much for you to follow that. And I
No.
think that Ansem's story is basically the despair story compared to the hope story.
Right. The contrast.
And right, it's the contrast, right? And when you get to the end, and he's like, king, bring me your darkness, Kingdom Hearts, and Sora's all, oh, Kingdom Hearts is light. I think that's meant to play into that, and you just haven't been set up for it. And it's
Yeah.
only after I've now played it so much that I
Right.
finally am like, oh, I see what and I've read all this stuff in the journals. I'm like, oh, I see what they were trying to do. They just didn't point you at it at all. And a
Yeah.
lot of it you can miss.
Right.
Um, even if you read all the stuff that you find, there's a lot of pages you can miss, or a lot of reports you can miss. So that actually kind of ties in with another topic, which is the journal,
Right. Right.
because that's of course where you read all this stuff. What were your thoughts about the journal? There's some stuff I definitely liked about the journal.
Well, to be honest, I didn't use it much. I brought it up as a topic because I thought we should talk about it, and I wanted to know how you used it too. But I did appreciate having it there. I didn't realize for a while that it actually also had it also tracked your collectibles, so you could kind of see what you had gotten. I think, right, at
Mm-hmm.
least the Dalmatians, maybe others too.
Yes.
Um, so that was nice, and then it was interesting to have. So you have Jiminy. Jiminy narrates some of it, right? Or is he writing in it for on your
Writing
behalf?
in there for you. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the Ansem stuff, right? So it was, I didn't track sort of like the legacy side of this, but journals ended up being a pretty important for me and a pretty important system for content for RPGs because it was a low impact way to sort of get that extra lore in the game if you wanted to seek it out, right? A modern version being, say, the Codex from Mass Effect or something, right? And so it was an opt-in kind of situation for a lot of deeper stuff. So I did appreciate they had it in there, but to your point, you kind of had to. I think we talked about this in a previous episode, right? The related topic here is how far down the deep lore hole do you go with anything, and after playing it 4 times, 5 times, you've assimilated the lore that makes you appreciate it more. And it's a very tricky balance, for somebody like me who's playing the 25-hour version and just playing kind of, I wouldn't say the bare minimum, but just straight through. But then if the lore is attached to things that are opt-in, then the straight playthrough is not as gratifying, So the journal for me ended up not being a tool that I use very much, just for time and interest. But ironically, I might have enjoyed the story more if I had.
Yeah, I mean it's also, it does track all sorts of completion type stuff. I think there are five categories of completion that you can get trophies for that are just the journal, and then one that's like if you get them all.
Mm.
It's like the story. There are just go in and read so and so's story. You can read Sora's story. Um, it's all the characters in the game, and all the Heartless are in there
Oh,
in
that's
one
right.
section. All the mini games are in there, and you can go and see your scores in all the mini games.
Which mini games? You mean the Hundred
Like
Acre Wood?
yeah, 100 Acre Wood, but also sliding down the vine.
Oh, Coliseum probably.
Coliseum, I think. Yeah, probably your scores in the Coliseum. There's something in the timed attacks in the Coliseum. I think are one. There's a few there. There's like 6 or 7 of them. What else? I mean, one thing I really do like about the journal is that if you go in and look at any of the Disney characters, they have, oh, this is this character, blah blah blah. Here's how they tie into this story, and then they say, oh, first appeared in such and such movie, 1958 or whatever. So all
Oh,
the Disney history is
that's
just
neat.
threaded through, in a nice way. They've
Huh.
got a nice little portrait in there as well, which I do really appreciate. So
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, it's just I didn't end up. Yeah, I didn't end up using it much. Speaking of lore, I have two quick lore questions for you that I see in my notes.
okay, I'll try.
One, is the Hollow Bastion from Final Fantasy VIII?
No,
So why did the Final Fantasy
well,
VIII characters say that that was their childhood home? They remember
uh,
they show up at
I'm
the end in Sid's. They say, "Oh, we arrived in Sid's gummy ship," and they say, "Wow, our childhood home hasn't looked this bad in a while." And I was like, "Oh, is the Hollow Bastion from one of the Final Fantasy games?" But it's not.
I I didn't think so. I mean, I had thought it was the way I read it. I read it as basically um, the castle from Beauty and the Beast, which I don't remember particularly well because I only saw that movie once. Um, but I guess it could be. They do definitely say that.
Yeah, I don't. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
no, it's not. It's no, you're right. It's not a Disney location. I don't know that comes up. I've only played Final Fantasy VIII once, and I don't particularly care for it.
Right.
So I don't, because that's one I think is one of those games that's just like, oh, very kind of dark and all that stuff, and
It
just
it
not
would have
something.
come out. Didn't we find out this one? We figured out this one came. This came out after Final Fantasy VIII, right? Is that
This
right?
came out after Final Fantasy IX, so yes,
Oh, right, right, right.
and
And
10, I think.
right, because 10 was on PS2
Yes, correct.
and 8 was on PS1.
Yeah, 8, 7, 8, and 9 were on
7, 8,
PS1.
9 were on PS1. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I forgot to look it up ahead of time, but I figured you'd know. So, but
No, I
Hollow
think
Bat,
you're. I think you're. They do definitely say that, and it's not. It's not a Disney location though. For me, it's weird that Belle is there, and that Beast is there. That's kind of breaks
right. There's something
other
weird.
stuff that's going on. But all the princesses are there, so maybe Beast has somehow broken through time and space himself.
Yeah, because he's a badass. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, that could be just the what that means. But okay, what? And you had another one.
Well, related to that, what happened to Belle? Like, what is the story there? Because unless there's some secret ending or some side content I didn't find or do that you've done through your 5 playthroughs, in the final room, well, one of the final rooms where you see all the princesses there, they're out of their cells or whatever,
Uh huh.
and you can talk to them. They're all
Yes.
standing around talking to each other. Belle isn't there.
Right.
And then once you progress to a certain point, Beast is he's taken out of your party, and Goofy or whoever you didn't have in your party, Goofy for me, comes back in, and then you never hear about Beast and Beauty again. So where did they not resolve the Bell thing, or
No, she's in the library.
oh, I didn't go back into the
Yeah,
library.
and I think Aerith is in there as well. There are several characters actually in there,
Okay,
um, and they're
okay.
just hanging out in the library. And she actually gives you a pretty decent Keyblade if you go talk to her. So
Son of a okay. I found one in a chest above in that room above that, but I didn't go back in the library. In the in
yeah,
the
she
in
gives
the
one called the Desert Rose. It's quite good. Probably the
oh,
best one you could have gotten without going after the Ultima blade.
well, Oblivion. The Oblivion Blade or whatever is not the.
That
Okay.
one's very good too. I think the Desert Rose might be slightly better.
Well,
I
that's
can't
cool.
recall. Yeah.
Yeah, see, I didn't in the post in the sort of outtake scenes or whatever, or post credit scenes or during credit
Yeah,
scenes.
they don't resolve it. Yeah.
They show some people in the library, and it didn't even dawn on me to go back in there.
Yep.
So okay, there you go. I
No,
did. It
that one I
was
did
side
know.
content that I didn't do
Yeah. Yeah.
away. So
Yeah, and I don't know why. Like again, I've only seen that movie once. I guess she's kind of bookish, maybe. I
oh
don't
no,
know.
she's a book person. Yeah, that's her
Okay.
thing. Yeah, that
Okay.
makes sense. When you say she's in
Yeah.
the library for as a somebody who does know that movie, I would say that makes a lot of sense. It
Okay.
should have dawned on me. So
All right. The
uh,
last thing we have to talk about it only briefly
yeah,
is the gummy ship.
yeah,
There's a huge amount of content having to do with the gummy ship,
yeah. We never even talked about it.
and we've never talked about it, and nobody really does because it's mostly pretty bad.
It's not
Uh,
good.
yeah, there's the whole thing where you can actually make your own gummy ships. You can get blueprints
Yeah,
that
I
will
opened that screen up.
have gummy ships made for you. Um, if you're playing on a harder difficulty, you actually want to do that. I went and made myself, I don't know, some ship. I can't remember. It might have been Squall. His ship is very powerful, so you can just kind of tear through. If you're playing a difficult version of the game, you just tear through the gummy ship sections because you've got so much firepower. But there are also these missions that you can do on all the different routes in the game.
Oh, really? What do you
Yeah.
mean?
So they involve like getting certain levels of score. I think that's all the mission one. There are 3 levels of missions,
Oh,
and they all have their own targets. Like go through this area with only Thundaga guns, which is these they're laser blasts like your main ship has, the original ship. But they go out at 45-degree angles left and right, I think. Something like that. They don't shoot straight. So it's very hard to fire them because you have to aim off kilter.
right. Wow.
So there's stuff like that. And I think there might be somewhere at the mission 3 level. I haven't done this yet, but there are trophies for this. The mission 3 level, I think there's somewhere it's like you have to go through things without taking damage. So
Where do you
I'm going to
get these
do all.
missions?
So the mission stuff is all on the gummy ship screen. So when you're on the universe map, the interspace map,
Mm-hmm.
there's a button which says missions or gummy missions or something like that. It's just like hit triangle and you go, and it just shows you like for each route what
And
the mission.
this is on the PS2 version for sure.
Yeah, I'm
Or
pretty sure. Yeah,
okay. Yeah, I just
I
missed
can't
it.
imagine they would have added more gummy stuff.
No, I hope not. I mean, I went to the gummy ship creation screen, and I kind of tooled around
I
there a little bit, but then I
tried
realized,
to
oh
make
no,
a ship, and then I went, oh no, this is horrible.
no,
It's
quickly.
very bad. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very bad.
It,
I'm
it
not.
it it's admirable, and it's
Yeah,
not exactly the same thing, but I feel like in the Final Fantasy IX series we talked about like the card game, for instance, that they had, or maybe the Chocobo thing that you did that I didn't do, but it really felt very much like that kind of formula where they always have this essentially side game that's in and amongst the main game, right? To give you, I don't know, some palate cleansing or something extra, maybe.
that's another thing. I mean, JRPG design is maximal, not minimal.
Yeah, that's really well said. That's no joke.
No,
These
that's the way it works.
and
Oh
the
no,
stories
there's
I've heard of
bosses
like,
on the main storyline. There's also a bunch of secret bosses that you have to go figure out how to
oh yeah,
find.
yeah, right, yeah, you
It's just,
mentioned that in pre-show, yeah,
it's just insane. The I mean, you can fight Sephiroth, as I mentioned. That one's pretty easy to find because you just keep fighting people in the Colosseum.
right,
But there are some that are just like, what?
right,
I have to do what now?
right,
uh,
right.
so it's just it's and I mean, I never would be able to do all this stuff without the internet. I mean, I
No,
just
no.
no way. So,
or a strategy guide, right?
or a
Perhaps.
strategy game. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's why those were popular at the time.
Yeah.
So,
And as somebody, as we always joke, as somebody who is as into World of Warcraft as I have been throughout my life, and we've had people write in for Kingdom Hearts saying, this is one of their favorite games from their early days, and I can totally see it. I can see this being one of those games similar to what happened to you, whether by accident or intentionally, that you can really just sink yourself into, because there is a lot going on. There is a kind of a deep fantasy fulfillment or something, if you will, of just being in, especially if you're a Square fan, Squaresoft fan, that you have both the double whammy, like we talked about with Disney and Squaresoft. And it's really kind of, there's aspects of a dream come true kind of game. And so having these extra bosses that you could discover, and going back to places, or like the Trinity even, right? Like I know you went back and got all of those, of course. And just that
yeah,
one.
those are also all in the journal.
Oh,
How many you've gotten?
right. That's right. I forgot about. I did see that list. Yeah. So, but it's just it's a cool thing to go back to these worlds and really like scour. So I get it. Just didn't stick with me in particular. But yeah, I guess the last thing that I would say before we can maybe close out with our takeaways is kind of just the ending being the very ending in a way. I guess I didn't. It's pretty impressive how how it ends, clearly leading to the next game or a next game.
Yeah,
Because obviously you're waiting the whole game to see Mickey, and the culmination is and I actually am fairly surprised, and Brett has a good theory on this. I'm fairly surprised at how little you see Mickey. Um, but obviously that moment is really cool. And then he gets closed in there with Riku, and that's it. And you're like, whoa, okay, there's closure. You won technically, but clearly not everyone. Like part of Goofy and Donald's mission was to get Mickey back. They did not
right.
succeed. They have not succeeded yet. So I guess I was kind of surprised that it really ends with, it's not a cliffhanger, but it definitely ends with, okay, this is just chapter one, and that's it's pretty bold
Yeah, it was
ending.
bold. I mean, it's bold to approach it that way, but right. I mean, it's if there was never another game, like if this had not done the great numbers that it did, it's also just it's clear what's going to happen next in a sense, right? They're going to keep going to different worlds looking
Mm,
for Mickey, right? He said that there are many ways into the light, right? Many doors into the light.
right.
And that and you've okay, that's what they do now. They're walking the inner space like Kane and Kung Fu. So
Right. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. There's definitely I'm blanking on, there's some famous movie or something, movies that end that way, where it's there's not that kind of closure, and they're just going to keep going. Yeah, Kane's a good example.
yeah,
But
I mean it's a pretty common structure, right? I mean
yeah,
it's a
yeah,
story engine.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean I think that's clear. I mean there are some strange things in playing this on the PS4. I mean you for one thing that scene is the beginning of Chain of Memories, or Rechain of Memories, which is how I'm playing it on the PS4 when it's in 3D.
Chain.
Um, yep,
Yeah.
uh, because they actually changed it quite a bit. It is a remake.
Oh, you mean, yeah,
Um,
from like GBA to a PlayStation 4 game? Yeah,
yeah,
that's
to a
or two.
to a console,
Yeah,
to a 3D console game,
right.
because it had also been on PS2. Um, I don't know why. Like I'd have to go back and try to figure all that stuff out. But um, yeah, it goes directly into that. Another thing that happens at the end of once you've finished the game the first time on the PS4, there's a movie you can play, which has some dude in black fighting off tons and tons of Heartless, mostly the shadows, the little ones, the ant-like creatures.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a part where he's fighting all these things, and then there's a part where he runs up. I mean, it's like really well choreographed. It looks like Devil May Cry or something. And then there's a part where he starts running up this wall, like this building, and I'm watching this thing going, I have no idea what's going on here. And then at the end, Mickey shows up, and he's all dressed in black. But it's not this, the other guy fighting was not Mickey. He was much taller. It's a very, very strange video.
Wait, so when you say movie, is it a cutscene or is it like a standalone separate?
It's an
movie
extra separate thing that's a few minutes long
that they added to 1.5 or something.
Yeah, that they added at some point along the way to these games.
It's got to be Riku, right?
Maybe.
I mean, they both were in there at the end behind the door. They both got closed.
It could be. That's a good read.
Yeah.
But it's very, I mean, probably.
That's wild. That's wild.
It's just wild how far this how deep the rabbit hole goes. All right.
You have 400 hours left. So.
That's all. I mean, plus getting the platinums. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll come back to a couple of emails as well as our takeaways.
Sounds good.
Welcome back from the break. Of course, this is the last episode in this series. And so it's time to take a look back and look at our takeaways or pillars. Either way, mine are more takeaways, I think, than they are necessarily pillars. But why don't you go ahead and give us one first, sir?
Well, I just have two topics, and they're very obvious, and we've hit them plenty, so we don't have to rehash them too much. But I think the main big obvious one is the mashup of the franchises of the IPs, and the sort of I guess surprise and just kind of out of left field nature of this franchise in general. We talked about it probably in the first episode, I'm pretty sure, but just all of us being just kind of flabbergasted at the concept of this game even was going to exist. And that these two behemoths of companies just also merging and trying to find a way to make a game work. Obviously Square led the charge because it's a JRPG, but this kind of thing just wasn't really that common to do in this way, and just a fascinating goal that they had, and clearly a pillar of finding a way for the player to be able to explore all of these Disney worlds through the eyes of new Square characters, but then also meet some Square characters along the way. I haven't even played Final Fantasy VII, and when Cloud shows up, even I know that that's significant, and there's a bit of elation when I saw him. I was like, wow, that's that Cloud guy. That's pretty cool. So I can only imagine if I had some excitement there, that somebody who is a huge Final Fantasy VII fan, would have also had that excitement. And then that goes with every single Disney World as well. And just love, like I mentioned with the animation rigging and stylization that they really nailed. Just the love that they put into merging these franchises was just astounding. And they really, for the most part, nailed it, every time.
I mean, and this is probably the last possible moment that you could do it. Right? I don't know that in 2000, whatever, since then, it's just not possible. Games have gotten too big, so licensors haven't wanted to why would we'd get our own game. We don't need to have it. We don't need to mix our chocolate with your peanut butter.
Right.
So there's definitely is audacious. And I think it was literally the last possible moment because of the PS2's explosive growth that this could have even happened. So
yeah, it's very unique. Yeah. I mean, you have a few little things like Injustice, right, or something like that, or not Injustice,
yeah, true.
Mortal Kombat versus DC, some fighting game stuff like that are kind of have their own wacky take on merging, whole franchises together. But yeah, it's not a common thing. And
Right.
to be honest,
and we may see it again. To be honest, with Disney buying everything,
right? Well, yeah, I guess in a roundabout, more like direct way, yeah. When you have, well, we talked about Disney Infinity to some degree, right? So
right,
that's an example of, you see Marvel, Star Wars, and Disney properties all in one place.
But even there, though, they tried not to mix it, is what you said.
Yeah, no, in the play sets you can't mix it, which is just ridiculous. So
weird.
Yeah. So obviously,
yeah.
Yeah.
My counter to that was that I when I first played this game some years ago now, I thought this was would be a very different game from what it was. I've referenced this in the cast, is that I didn't care about Sora so much, and I wasn't really into that. I thought it was going to be primarily a Disney game, a JRPG, yes, but a Disney JRPG, and not a mashup of Final Fantasy with Disney. And that might have been me just missing out on the marketing or whatever. It's entirely possible. I just saw what I wanted to see. But yeah, I think I at the time felt like, what is this?
Yeah.
I thought this was a Disney thing. And I think it is important to clearly communicate to your audience which of those games you are, or if you're, because I do think this is more Final Fantasy with Disney mixed in,
than that's a good
Disney
point.
with Final Fantasy mixed in. You know what I mean?
No, that's fair.
I think the bedrock here is Final Fantasy, and I had played a few Final Fantasies by the time I got around to playing this. I was looking for something different. So I do think it's really, when you're going to do things like this, you have to be really clear. And I had a lot of frustration too, that first time playing it, that I didn't get to play the Disney characters directly, that I, that, not all the places I'd like to go, I get to go, etc. So there was more, I'm following this story. I kind of want to know more about all these Disney characters. This time though, I did enjoy going back to those worlds and really running around in them, and just letting the nostalgia soak in, and then just not letting the other stuff get to me.
Right.
So, I think, and that I think is because I had played it once before and was prepared. It was just like, oh, okay, yeah, that's right. This is not the game you thought it was, and that's fine. Now I can see it for what it is. So anyway.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's a good point that relates to the previous point you made about sort of like the time. It's sort of its time, and probably something like this, if it were kind of starting from the first game rather than the third, like the one that just came out, but like having another one of these sorts of things start up, it would be very rare, because the the audience breakdown would be very weird for this game, even at the time, right? You were a Disney fan that got surprised, right? And maybe weren't in your full JRPG splendor yet. And so the demographic crossover is very kind of odd, right? It's somebody who likes Disney, but needs to like JRPGs and Square games probably more. Yeah. And so there is a lot of crossover there, but you are limiting, in a way, you're taking this Disney property, or many Disney properties that people will relate to in the West, and then you're putting it into a JRPG where, people just may not be used to it. So you're kind of alienating, potentially, or, which is probably what their real plan was, they're trying to introduce new people to JRPGs, right?
Yeah,
so rather than, what's this Final Fantasy thing? I'm not going to start those series, but this has Disney in it. so it's kind of it's the first one's free, kind of like ease
Yeah.
you in,
Yeah.
which might be it's dawning on me now to my second takeaway, which we'll get to after yours, why they made that decision. But
Well,
what
that
is
was my
your?
first takeaway.
Oh, okay.
My counterpoint. I put it.
Counterpoint.
I put it
You
first
put
because
it
I was like,
differently than
yeah,
I did,
yeah,
right? That's
yeah,
okay. Good. Then good partnership there. Well, then my second takeaway, which relates to that, is it's just dawning on me now, which is silly that it's just dawning on me now. That actually might be why they went action oriented, was because they wanted to use this. Maybe this is out there already, and they've already talked about this in articles and interviews. So I just didn't do my research, and people already know that this is the reason. But if you do have a goal of bringing in new, especially Western players into your franchises, your JRPG franchises, and introducing them to the squalls and the clouds of the world or what have you, then you might think to yourself, well, those gamers like more action oriented games, so we're going to take our JRPG structure but make the combat action. And then when they come over into this new kind of fresh way to play an RPG, they're not as alienated. Um, so it could have been strategic. Maybe I'm giving them too much credit, but my second takeaway was really transitioning into action oriented, which was something Square had not done a lot of, and them starting to dabble in that world, but within the structure of a JRPG. So that was just it's kind of like another mashup in a way, right? They
yeah.
mashed up properties and then they mashed up mechanics, and systems. So it's really kind of a fascinating game, and kind of an impossible game, to be honest. Like the more I'm talking about it now, the more I'm realizing it's amazing this game ever came to be.
Yeah.
It's
It
like
really is. I know.
they just threw all sorts of stuff together and somehow it worked. It's just kind of magical.
Yeah. Well, and then you go look at the litany of other games,
Mm,
and they're
hmm.
all different. I mean, not the main three, not the numbered ones.
Oh
But
yeah.
there are all kinds of weird stuff in these games. And as I'm discovering, I just dipped my toe into Chain of Memories one night out of curiosity. I was like, okay, I got to finish my other stuff I'm doing first before I can really dive into this. But I was curious
You
because
said there's a whole card game thing in
yeah,
there?
this card battling. You're basically, when you're attacking, you're making your choices out of your deck.
Oh, it's like Metal Gear Acid. Oh, I see. It all
See,
comes
there
back
you
to Metal
go.
Gear.
So found a connection for you. Now you're like, oh, maybe I will. Maybe I will play this one.
uh,
Um, my second one was that earnestness is okay.
oh yeah.
This is really a time when, I mean, we talked about this in the cast, so I'm not going to go into it in crazy detail or anything, but when game stories were getting dark,
Yeah. Brooding and
and yeah, I mean, everything was getting grim, and I think there's some cultural differences here too, because I think Japanese games have always tried this more than Western games have. But I do really appreciate that. And I do think that actually ties into why the story is hard to tell, because I think games that are hopeful and open sound corny. I
mm-hmm.
think that is something that is how we read these games often.
It's not
And
cool.
yeah, exactly. Well, it's not exactly right. I mean, they're a hot culture, right? We're a cool culture or something. Remember, we went to that talk,
Mm-hmm.
the makers of a Wendan, um, and elite beat agents,
Right.
I should say.
Yeah, that was a good talk.
Uh, but but yeah, I mean, I think it's okay to tell stories that are hopeful and uplifting, and probably those are the kind of stories we need right now to a certain degree. um, there's struggle here obviously, but I love that there are two people at the end of the game who have different interpretations of what they're about to see because of their belief systems. I think that's actually kind of interesting. Ansem expects that it's darkness behind that door, and Soren knows that it's light, and that's kind of cool. It's an earnest thing,
Yeah.
but that's pretty neat. And I think you probably need to have a childish character in a way to make that pull off, but I think that's also part of it. Ansem is not anymore, right? He's an adult and everything's gotten dark for him.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff going on in those themes. But
No.
I do think it's an important takeaway to say, look, everything doesn't have to be Metal Gear.
Nice. Wow. Good callback there. Yeah, I forgot. I don't think I mentioned it in previous episodes of the series, but somewhere early in my notes of like episode 1 or 2 or session 1 or 2, I wrote down a note. I can't find it, that specifically talks about them being children as being a critical element. Because I think I wrote the note down, and this will just be a quick aside. I won't go too deeply into it. I think I wrote the note down because I remember you saying in the first episode that you were never a Sora fan. And so I was kind of like, as I was playing, I was kind of trying to figure out like why that would be. And then it kind of dawned on me that, compared to Squall and Cloud and these other like quote unquote cool characters, they're kids. Sora's a kid, and different way to relate, but to your point, actually probably critical to the themes you're talking about. And I think, and let alone the sort of maybe audience types,
but also and also Disney, right?
Too, right?
It
yeah, Disney
ties in perfect with Disney, right? I mean, who is going to be impressed by Donald and Goofy and Mickey?
Yeah,
a kid.
Yeah, or amazed that Beast is in your party with you. That's just cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he is standing in for the kid inside all of us, right? The kid who saw those movies, right? Yeah, for sure.
If Sora, if we played the game as an adult as Sora was, I think that would just not have landed.
Yeah, no, I don't think that works at all. Yeah. So anyway, that was my takeaway.
Good one.
As far as the story goes.
Did you have any others?
No, I didn't. I really didn't. I mean, I think that a lot of the stuff we've talked about, I could talk about JRPGs and being maximal and all the stuff of like late game stuff that might grab you and it's there if you want to explore. But I think that those are liabilities as much as strengths, as we talked about. So it's not, I think you have to be a lot more careful with that stuff, and you can't really expect somebody's going to pour in 50, 60 hours into your game. Certainly not anymore. So they're not things I necessarily would take away at this point. So
yeah. All right.
At the time, maybe, but not now. So, all right. Well, that about wraps up our discussion of Kingdom Hearts, except for whatever feedback we hear from you folks. Before we move on to the emails, I of course want to give you Brett's book recommendation to pair up with Kingdom Hearts. This one's kind of a weird one because I don't read a lot of stuff I think that would fit directly. I could not think of anything I've read in the last few years, which is several hundred books, that would really tie in directly in any really, really tangible way. So this is kind of out of left field a little bit. But one book I thought of was N.K. Jemisin's The 100,000 Kingdoms. I believe is the title. It's the first book in her first trilogy, the Broken Kingdoms trilogy, I think it's called. And the reason why that one comes to mind is that it's set in a castle that makes me think of the Hollow Bastion. It's got secret passages, and there's magic involved, and there's also demons. So there's a whole, or gods, I guess. It's a really interesting book. It's a pretty good trilogy. I think the first 2 books are very strong. The third one, not as huge on. I think could have used a little bit more work. It doesn't land for me all the way. But the first one's really entrancing and interesting, and I would recommend it to people. The 100,000 Kingdoms. I believe N.K. Jemisin won a Hugo or a Nebula or both in the last year or so. She is a terrific author, and I've been slowly making my way through her entire oeuvre. So I recommend that one to you. Okay. Moving on to feedback. You can send us email at devgameclub@gmail.com. And you, sir, have the first one. Oh, and I'm looking here. and we actually have a review as well. So I will read that in between. But go ahead.
Okay, subject is a Super Squirtle from Brian Lamb. Hey, Brett and Tim, I know this is no, I'm late on this, but I just finished up your Pokemon series, and your discussion about stopping the evolution of your Pokemon triggered a long lost memory of mine. I played the original Pokemon Blue back in 1998, which was also when GameFAQs was rising in popularity on the internet. I'd read in a fact that by canceling Squirtle's evolution, he could learn his most powerful move, Hydro Pump, 10 levels earlier than if he were a Blastoise. My RPG OCD kicked in, and I decided I was going to stay in the first area of the game, grinding levels on Squirtle until he had Hydro Pump. I must have spent a dozen hours just circling in the first patch of grass, battling Pidgeys and Ratatats. Sorry, the brain freeze on that one. Rattatas. To get his level up. I dug up my old Game Boy Pocket to confirm this. This is awesome. And I was surprised to find that my original save was still on the cart. Sure enough, I had a level 34 Squirtle, absurdly over level for the area I was in. Unfortunately, grinding Squirtle's level up must have burnt me out as a kid, because I never made it to his level 42 Hydro Pump and only got to the first badge in the game. Oh, that is the story. His final sentence: I'm considering wiping this legacy save file and starting over from scratch to finally complete the game. I'm glad you two had better luck finishing the game than me. That is a hilarious story.
Hilarious. That
and
is
tragic.
Such a gamer thing.
Yeah. Why does he have to wipe it, though? He should just keep going with that.
Yeah, just keep going from there.
To get the Hydro Pump and finish the whole game with just your Squirtle, because he's going to be able to take out everything
in one hit.
That is brilliant. And that sounds like a kid thing to do as well, especially,
or an adult thing to do.
Yeah, no, it's fair.
5 hours in the first area of Kingdom Hearts on fair difficult enough. To level up to level 20
with just the soccer ball.
With just the soccer ball. Yeah. And a little bit of fighting Riku.
That's right. You just did this.
I literally
just did what Brian did. That is hilarious. It didn't even dawn on me. You literally did the exact same thing. Oh my gosh. It still happens. Good job, Brian. I think you should get Squirtle there. Do it. And
I'd say keep going.
Keep us posted. You have another email?
Yeah, I have actually a review as well. I hadn't checked. I had forgotten to check because I was sick last week. I'm behind on my feeds. But it's funny because it's from the same person who sent the email, so it's timely. It's from Snazzy Snorlax, who also has our second email. Gaming podcast by devs for gamers. This is one of the easiest podcasts to listen to. As developers Brett and Tim, or Tim and Brett, tonight it's Tim and Brett, really bring some insightful discussion into our lives about some of the best retro games, both well-known and a little more obscure. I always look forward to hearing their thoughts on the various games and how they influence modern game development. Can't wait for the next episode each week. So thank you for that, Snazzy. I also have your email here. We learn more about Snazzy in the deep backstory here at Kingdom Hearts Podcast. He says, hello, Snazzy Snorlax here, writing from Lexington, Kentucky. I'm a huge fan of your podcast, a dev game clubber, if you will, and want to let you guys know how happy I am you are playing and discussing Kingdom Hearts, my favorite JRPG series of all time. This series means so much to me and can't wait to hear your thoughts on the final section of the game. Well, just rewind to the beginning there. I find it very interesting that you're playing the PS2 version rather than the PS3, PS4 remixes. I think you guys have already mentioned it, but the remixes move the camera from the L2, R2 buttons to the right analog stick, and that alone improves the gameplay significantly, though it still doesn't improve the mess that is Deep Jungle. I know the first game gets a lot of flack for being clunky and whatnot, but it remains one of my favorites due to the interesting character reactions and overall wonderful level design and verticality that many of the other games lack. I'm curious if y'all are planning to do a bonus episode for Kingdom Hearts 3, similar to what you did with God of War 2018 and Pokemon Let's Go. Very interested to hear your thoughts about the evolution of the gameplay mechanics and design along with the sense of scale the new game has due to the powered up hardware. Love your work and can't wait to see what you guys play next. A huge dev game clubber, Snazzy Snorlax. Well, Snazzy, I think we've already mentioned, well, maybe we didn't. I think that might have been in pre-show.
Yeah,
We are not, in fact, going to play any Kingdom Hearts 3. Mostly because I've got a bunch of other games to get through to get there, and I don't want to be spoiled. I don't want to, I got to live through years of Kingdom Hearts. I've got a journey before me now. I'm on a road, a lonely road.
Yeah, we want to honor and respect that road, and so in this particular case, it felt better to not skip whatever 7 games to get there. But maybe when you get there, I wouldn't mind. I won't mind the spoiling, and maybe we can do a bonus
about it at that point
down the road, and I'll jump in that weird location of the story of the timeline and to be totally confused. But yeah, I mean, for something, like Pokemon Let's Go is a perfect bonus episode because it was a literal remake of the game we just played. So sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't. But yeah.
Well, that final sentence, can't wait to see what we play next, is a perfect lead-in to what we are playing next. Tim, you want to tell the folks at home what we're playing?
Yeah. So switching over, we've only played one Blizzard game on the podcast, which was Warcraft, the original Warcraft 1 RTS, and Diablo has been there's been a little bit of hoopla here and there lately, rumors of announcement of maybe a 4 and things like that. But I just felt like we haven't played another Blizzard game, and then as kind of like an interesting contrast to the RPGs we've been playing lately, it felt interesting to play sort of like in many ways the genesis of the action RPG, which would be Diablo 1. So we're going to play Diablo 1, and next it's going to be obviously another RPG, but a very contrasting one compared to Kingdom Hearts and such. Still action oriented, so I'm sure we'll talk about the 2 different versions of action, which will be interesting. And Brett discovered that there are ways out there to play it, and so it shouldn't be too hard.
You're going to want to, especially if you're on Windows 10, you're going to want to go ahead and go to archive.org. It is available there. You can get the ISO, which is basically the CD-ROM image. And on a Windows 10 machine, that is easy to mount. It's not complicated under Windows 10. You used to have specialized software on older versions of hardware. This one will be kind of interesting for me to stream. I don't know if we'll be able to network play it, though, Tim, as a result.
Okay. That'd be a bummer because one of the we'll have to talk about
because you won't be able to go to blizzard.net.
Right. Well, back then I think it was IP based.
It might have been. Yeah, it might have been.
I think it was direct. That might be why they haven't. That's might be why it's on archive and not on their website, because Diablo 2 you can still buy for $10. So yeah, it would be interesting. It'd be a bummer if we can't co-op it at some point. That would be fun. This would be the first game that we would play co-op, right?
That's right. Yeah. We've never managed to make it happen. So,
and that was actually an important part of Diablo's legacy, I would say, as well, because it was definitely a key attribute of the franchise. So, well, we'll see if we can do that or not. We'll talk about it at least if we can't.
Yeah.
So yeah, exciting change, but excited to have finished Kingdom Hearts. It was a good run, very intriguing game.
Yeah, and one that opened my heart. It's going to be interesting going from earnest and open and light to Diablo.
Yeah.
Da, da, da.
There we go.
Literal portal to hell.
Yeah. Yep. There's definitely
no. It's actually darkness behind those doors. Don't go in there, Sora. It's actually darkness.
Yeah. Diablo's in there, and he's coming for you.
He's coming for you.
So yeah, we're going to play up to the first section, right? The first 4-level section that ends in a boss called the Butcher, which is
I believe it does. It has been
since
around 1998.
Yeah,
it's been
20
years.
It's procedurally generated as well. So, but it's always the bosses always end up on the same floor, I think.
Yeah, I
So
think he's on like the third floor actually.
yeah, yeah.
So
So yeah, there we go.
all right. Well, we will do that next week. You'll be able to find us talking about that. I will try to stream that. I don't know yet how that's going to work, so we will see. I might be playing this one on my laptop because my laptop's Windows 10, but it's plenty ample. It's more just a question of how do I make that work on my laptop again? I have to figure that out. I have been, as I mentioned, streaming on Twitch. I do it most weeknights, Mondays through Thursdays, when I play a separate game. Right now we're playing Ni no Kuni, and I might dip back into Let's Go Pokemon one night this week. And you can also see me playing on the weekends in longer extended sessions on whatever game we're playing for the cast. So this week that would be Diablo. I will sneak in whatever other things I can play at any given time. So that's at twitch.tv/BrettDouville. You can find the cast on Twitter at DevGameClub, or shoot us email at devgameclub@gmail.com. Or you can find Tim on Twitter at
Tim Longo Jr. with a JR at the end.
Have fun playing games this week. And for now, good night from the bottom of my heart.
Good night.